Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. History is unfolding as we speak. Trump is set to talk at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville on Saturday, and rumors are ramping up. He'll announce Bitcoin as the strategic reserve asset. Mainstream media absolutely loving it. The thing is, RFK beat him to it already. He jumped the gun. It is game time. We have pension funds buying huge amounts of Bitcoin. Mara just bought $100 million for their corporate treasury. We have the big red buy button in the back. Let's get straight into it. So diving straight into mainstream media. Forbes, are you ready? Elon Musk fans, wild rumors Donald Trump will create a US Bitcoin strategic reserve and trigger crypto price chaos. Tossed here. Bitcoin 1 million. CNBC says Donald Trump can hold Bitcoin as a reserve currency for the US. If this does take place, then 1 million Bitcoin is inevitable. It's TikTok next block. Kitco News is a historic Bitcoin will be US reserve asset announcement coming this weekend. Again, Kitco, Bitcoin is US reserve treasury currency. Trump team reportedly considers adding Bitcoin to their treasury. Diving over to Cointelegraph, asset managers say Trump admin may make Bitcoin the strategic reserve asset. Bitcoin has a supply cap of 21 million, making it an excellent hedge against currency devaluations and geopolitical turmoil. Sue chiming in here. Rumor is that Trump will announce a $1 million Bitcoin US reserve here at Bitcoin Nashville. It sounds a little bit bearish to me if he's only buying $1 million for the strategic reserve asset. But carrying straight on, the street, the roundtable, will Trump endorse Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset? Nashville Bitcoin conference awaits Trump's possible strategic reserve asset endorsement. People are getting ready. Now, we talked about this on Monday. I did talk about Trump walking back his statement against Nayib Bukele. He has done that just in time for the conference before he gets on stage with Max Kaiser. Let's hear it from the man himself.
Another meeting. We'll do it in Venezuela because it'll be much safer than any place in the United States. Because by that time, we'll have all the criminals from all over the world in our country, because that's what's happening. You're not going to teach a criminal not to be a criminal. It's just not going to happen. Maybe a little bit, but you're not going to happen. One of the countries, the president of the country, I don't want to really mention the name, but he's a nice guy. I know every one of them. They're very smart people. They're very sharp. They're at the top of their game. Our guy was not at the top, and this one is just, she never could be. Another meeting.
Interesting, hey? It didn't take him very long to be able to change that. Now, in regards to Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset, I just want to bring everyone's attention to the US holds 207,189 Bitcoin. People are calling for the auction to stop in the meantime and to add this straight onto the balance sheet. They're the largest nation state holding Bitcoin at the moment. We also see BlackRock and the Wall Street firms, they hold nearly 300,000 Bitcoin. The US is in a pretty good place if they do adopt Bitcoin as a reserve asset, and I think we're days away from finding out whether it's a possibility or not. We will dive into the video of RFK, already jumping the gun on that. But Sam, I thought this was a pretty good explainer of how the US can use Bitcoin. So Sam, the US can use Bitcoin to deter China and Russia from leveraging their gold reserves to undermine dollar dominance. Bitcoin is on the cusp of nation-state adoption, so what role might it play in economic statecraft? As it turns out, a very big one. Let's dive in. Diving into his thread, it's not very long. We're going to hear a lot of talks this week about Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. What is a strategic reserve asset? A strategic reserve asset is a resource that a state accumulates to strengthen its defenses, stabilize its economy, or secure a competitive advantage over other states. Example of strategic reserve assets include commodities like gold, oil, agricultural goods, and critical minerals. Countries often draw on these reserves in time of war, pandemic, nature, disaster, economic crisis, or other national emergencies. This may really help out the US and the rest of the world with what Janet Yellen is coming out with this pandemic fund. Absolutely insane. But okay, cool, Sam. How can Bitcoin be leveraged as a strategic reserve asset? In short, it can be used as a check on gold weaponization. China and Russia are dumping US treasuries and hoovering up gold to undermine dollar dominance, but Bitcoin can fix this. By classifying Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset, that would be a starting pistol in the Bitcoin space race. If the US, the wealthiest country in the world and the home of global capital, begins accumulating Bitcoin on its balance sheet, then other countries would have powerful incentives to do the same. This would send nation-state game theory into hyperdrive as sovereigns scramble to accumulate the scarcest monetary asset on planet Earth. In effect, the US could slow and possibly even reverse the flight to physical gold by inundating a digital gold rush. Last part here. Policymakers, not policy smokers, are slowly waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is more than a financial experiment. It can be a tool for projecting US economic power. Whether we will wield this tool to its full advantage will depend largely on the results of the ballot box this November. You just know what to do. Get the right person into the White House. It's an opportunity for America to fix the financial chaos that is happening worldwide. Absolutely insane. We'll get into this video of RFK in a sec. It's so insane that we're here at this time and Bitcoin has seriously been talking about a strategic reserve asset. Forbes, how the US could leverage Bitcoin as a trump card against China. You just cannot stop. Everyone's talking about it. Even Peter Schiff. The only reason Trump supports Bitcoin is to get contributions and votes from the crypto community. Bitcoin and crypto are totally separate, Peter. He just fails to read the books. However, he's not worried that by supporting Bitcoin, he'll lose support from no coiners, so it's a political no-brainer, but any promise to make Bitcoin a reserve asset won't be kept. Possible. Politicians, it's not done until it is done. If you need any help, if your Bitcoin's still on the exchange, reach out to the Bitcoin Way today. Bitcoin is on the world stage right now. Make sure your wallet is air-gapped, you're running a node, you're doing the right thing. The first 30 minutes is free. There's a link at the top of the description there. And if you're at Bitcoin Nashville, the guys and the team will be there. Now, Bitcoin's starting to move. 64,625 when I woke up and fired up the computer this morning. If we hit refresh on it, about $1,000 move in about an hour and a half. 65,531, almost getting up to almost 66,000, 65,810. Last 24 hours, that was the high, 65,810 in the last couple of minutes, and a low. That would have been a nice buy signal, hey? 63,500. You cannot stop Bitcoin. It'll be interesting. Do expect volatility over the weekend. Whether you're smashing the red button, the green button, just buy, stack, and chill. Get used to it. Volatility is coming. It's an exciting time. I think we could see, I don't know, $5,000 candle over the weekend. What way? Up or down? Who knows? It depends on what comes out. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin conference has, over history, been very bad for the Bitcoin price. So we'll see. Maybe this red button that we've seen leading up to the conference, up to Trump's announcement, is trying to front run that. Maybe we pump, maybe we continue to dump. Probably more in favor to volatility to the upside, but we will find out over the weekend. We played this video the other day, but I thought it was pretty important to be able to bring it back up as the world mainstream media is truly waking up to the possibilities of Bitcoin. And it really doesn't matter whether Trump says, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to become the first, well, they're the world superpower, the US. And if they do add Bitcoin to the balance sheet as a treasury reserve asset, it just starts off a cascade effects the whole way around the world. And Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, we can credit him for doing this, and we can credit Michael Saylor for kicking it all off. If it happens, it's absolutely huge. I'll just bring it up again. It's not very long, 54 seconds. I think it's a good reminder of what's coming. If you can smash the like button on the way in and say g'day. Do you think that
these favorable comments could go so far as to indicate that he'd be open to it being a reserve currency for the U.S.?
Yeah, so there were some rumblings of that on X this week. It could be something that's very difficult to get done, but it is possible. The Justice Department holds about 200,000 units of Bitcoin. So the United States is the largest holder of Bitcoin. And so they could easily just move that over to the Department of Treasury and start right there and have 13 billion worth of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So it is a possible move. It just could be tough to get done. But what happens is the Justice Department, in holding these units of Bitcoin, they've been a random seller in the space. And so if they move from being a random seller at times, which could push the price of Bitcoin down, over to being a long-term hodler, well, that could be really good for the space and push prices up.
Either way, they've got to wake up sooner or later, don't they? It'll be interesting to see who gets in November. and what strategies they do adopt, but it is looking pretty good. Now, RFK, according to Michael Saylor, I'd like to have the federal government begin to buy Bitcoin over my term in office, ultimately have an equivalent amount of Bitcoin that we have gold. That's a huge amount there. And this is what RFK had to say. Absolutely sending it.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually do a kind of a basket of hard currencies of maybe platinum and gold and other hard currencies, and begin issuing at least a class of treasury bills that are anchored to hard currency, let's say the first year by 1% and then maybe the next year by 2%, and to watch how that goes, because that will inject the discipline into the product and ultimately get up to 100%. I would like to have the federal government begin to buy Bitcoin and to over my term of office, ultimately have an equivalent amount of Bitcoin that we have gold, because Bitcoin is an honest currency. It's a currency that's based upon proof of work, and everything's on the ledger, and it's decentralized, and that's what we need to do with democracy. If we want to save our democracy, we need to decentralize, and Bitcoin is honest because there's nobody in charge, and it's it is the template for that vision of decentralization and for personal sovereignty, personal control, and personal freedom.
When I listen to that, that's absolutely amazing. And shout out to RFK for doing that. Just before I give my opinion on that, I see Scott there. Love your optimism. Keep up the great work. Truly appreciate it. But I hope everybody is optimistic about Bitcoin, whether they adopt it or not. It doesn't matter. Just for Bitcoin entering into the conversation is huge signal. The whole world is waking up to it. Got some really interesting things here in Australia in regards to Trump if he gets it and how catastrophic it could be. But for any nation state to add Bitcoin onto their balance sheet as a strategic reserve asset, we've seen what happened in El Salvador. And obviously, there's a strong man with strong leadership making some very hard choices. But very quickly, El Salvador went from the highest murder capital in the world to the safest in the Western Hemisphere. Absolutely amazing. I think that would change the US, and there'd be a cascade effect, and maybe even Australian politicians to wake up to the fact. But RFK on that would like to accumulate more Bitcoin or as much Bitcoin as gold, and then which one's going to appreciate faster. It's a pretty good strategy in my opinion. Now, Mara, this according to Daniel Batten, just took a leaf from MicroStrategy's playbook. Mara's not only back to full hodl, they just purchased $100 million in Bitcoin for their corporate treasury today. It's absolutely insane that they're announcing it this week. I think that's going to be picked up by mainstream media as well. We've got pension funds buying Bitcoin, but they plan to hold all the Bitcoin mined and periodically make strategic purchases on the open market. So we've got a little bit of a video Walker's reposted there. Publicly traded miner just bought $100 million worth of Bitcoin for this strategic reserve asset. Let the games begin. Let's go back and hit play.
Mara has purchased $100 million worth of Bitcoin, with the company's total Bitcoin holdings now surpassing 20,000 BTC. And effective immediately, Mara will once again adopt a full HODL strategy. The company plans to retain all Bitcoin mined and periodically make strategic purchases on the open market. Adopting a full HODL strategy reflects our confidence in the long-term value of Bitcoin, said Fred Thiel, Mara's chairman and CEO. We believe Bitcoin is the world's best treasury reserve asset and support the idea of sovereign wealth funds holding it. We encourage governments and corporations to all hold Bitcoin as a reserve asset. Salman Khan, Mara's chief financial officer, added, prior to last year, the company used to hold all of its Bitcoin. Given Bitcoin's current tailwinds, including increased institutional support and an improving macro environment, we are once again implementing this strategy and focusing on growing the amount we hold on our balance sheet. Mara continues to harness its technological expertise to further support the growth and resilience of Bitcoin and the digital asset ecosystem. To read the full press release, visit
The only question I have in regards to that, if they're holding, look at that. It doesn't take long. Hey, hopefully you bought and smashed that big, beautiful, big red buy button while we had it up, down, or sideways. Bitcoin's volatile, but over time it's volatile to the upside. This is a pretty good example of that. But in regards to Mara, whatever we want to call them, the mining firm that's just bought $100 million worth, how do they pay for electricity if they're holding on to every single Bitcoin they mine? Is it every single Bitcoin they mine after they pay for electricity, or how are they paying for the huge amounts of electricity they're using to be able to build out with their infrastructure? Not 100% sure if I'll take that at face value, but still the facts are they have bought $100 million and they'll continue to keep adding to it. Are they going to hold 100%? I just don't understand how that works when Bitcoin is so energy intensive. If anyone's got any insight into that, greatly appreciated there. I find it interesting, but well done to them. And then after Mara, we have Jersey City to buy Bitcoin for the city's pension fund, says the city mayor. That's absolutely huge. People are just truly waking up to it. And all of this coming a week and a half after Trump announces that he may potentially, rumors start circulating that Trump may potentially announce Bitcoin as the strategic reserve asset. This is really the game theory that's playing out. It doesn't matter short term if nation states start buying it. But if you get city councils, city pensions buying it, individuals, companies adding it onto their balance sheet, it's just inevitable. And I think where we are now in Bitcoin's price discovery time, it's about to get exponential. It has been growing like the internet, and it's about to go straight up in the adoption. As the network grows, it will continue to keep growing. It will get bigger and bigger and suck everything in like a giant black hole or a giant orange hole. Now, just in Jersey City will make a 2% allocation of Bitcoin for its pension fund. The mayor of Jersey City, I'm sure eventually it will be more common, says Mayor Stephen Fulop. Well done. I wonder who orange pilled Stephen Fulop. Was it Dennis Porter? I probably wouldn't be too far off. Maybe Samson Mow. Maybe they're just watching Sailor. Maybe he just sits there on his phone and he watches a couple of podcasts by Michael Saylor. He's like, wow, we've got to do this. We need to get this pension fund absolutely sorted. It's pretty interesting nonetheless. Now, Oliver, he's always got the best takes, hey? And if you're not already following Oliver on X, I will repost him so you can find him super easy and just jump on there straight away. Such high signal. US states have kicked off pension fund game theory. The reason pensions are stepping up faster than most right now is because their money is truly long term. They're not pressured quarterly or even annually for results like most other institutions are. So the USD price facility. I have never, ever seen that word in my entire life. Vacillations of Bitcoin are less of a concern. This is bigger than most realize. Is that even a real word? I will Google it. I dare say it means volatility in many regards. And then Metaplanet, that is a huge announcement actually that they've done. I'll read this one first, and I don't have a tweet for it, but they've done something amazing. So the best performing stock in Japan is Metaplanet. In the last 5 days, up 141.94%. That was July 24 there. But Metaplanet have teamed up with Bitcoin Magazine to take that over to Japan. Also, MicroStrategy has teamed up with Bitcoin Magazine to be able to get the signal out there more and more. Bitcoin Magazine have been pushing shitcoins on Bitcoin for a long time. And I have been a pretty vocal advocate against him, but lately I've been paying quite a lot of respect, I guess, to the stance that the CEO, David Bailey, has taken. He's been a lot more level-headed. He's been very kind, especially with what happened with Swan. He's attacked him in the past. He came out very respectful. What he's done, getting President Trump on board there, I'm for that. And then the shitcoinery, not of interest, but I don't know, we live in a fiat world, I guess, and there is still a bit of noise out there. For the good things he's doing, well done. And I think that'll be good for Japan. It'll be good for MicroStrategy. It'll be good for Metaplanet. These things are happening. And if you don't believe that it's Bitcoin versus shitcoins, we've got Mr. Davidson saying this. I had to fact check. I'm like, is this real or is this AI? It's a little bit long, but it's well worth listening to. That this is even possible happening
highlighted a lot of background information about Bitcoin and about the immutable distributed ledger and the benefits of that, decentralization versus centralization. A lot of people in this space will use a phrase that you may be familiar with. There's Bitcoin and then there's shitcoin. Are you familiar with that phrase and what people might mean by that?
I am.
So could you elaborate on how people would differentiate the two?
Absolutely. I think the idea here is Bitcoin has had a long track record. The network has been operating for 10 years. The Bitcoin network has been tested. The decentralized nature of the Bitcoin protocol has been tested. People have tried to co-opt control of Bitcoin source code and push it in certain directions that benefit their business models. And this network and this protocol and its open source governance have withstood that test. It is robust, it has been tested, and it has had the benefit, frankly, of spending its first 5 years in its nascency, sort of operating in this environment of innovation and not having a lot of regulatory attention.
Is there a central authority that could dilute the value of Bitcoin?
No.
Is there a central authority that could filter transactions at Bitcoin?
No, that can only be done through the products and services that people utilize to access the network.
Like Coinbase, for example.
Absolutely. That is a U.S. company that is regulated based on the facts of what its business model is.
Right. And so just like in the U.S., the Federal Reserve or the Treasury doesn't change the dollar. The people at the edges, the banks generally do that. But with Bitcoin, you can still engage in peer-to-peer transactions like cash, correct?
Absolutely.
Because open source code, you could have a wallet, correct?
Absolutely.
All these features are different than many of the things that people call colloquially shitcoin. Because the value can be distorted by a central.
Let's go. How awesome is that? I don't know where that was filmed, whether it was in Congress or on the Senate floor. I don't know. That's absolutely amazing, though. Absolutely sending the signal and destroying both Coinbase and shitcoins. They are ultimately, fundamentally very, very different. Over here in Australia, the propaganda against President Donald Trump is ramping up. They want to keep the left in charge. They love the woke mind virus over here. It is what it is. I got into a cab with somebody that was so far on the left, and I brought up Trump, and it was the most amazing conversation. He's like, oh, we're not going to agree on absolutely anything. I said, maybe not, but having open discourse conversation, one of us is going to be proven wrong in this conversation. I said, ultimately, it doesn't really matter what our opinions are. We can just have a friendly conversation. He wanted to drop me off, and he had enough of it. He wasn't even willing to hear the opposite side of the argument. And this is pretty rampant, especially in the big cities here in Australia. At the end of the day, politicians, do you trust them on their word? No, until something comes into the law, until they follow what they say they're going to do, until they've made it happen, you take it with a grain of salt. But we'll see what comes out with Trump. RFK also putting out the high signal, but then in Australia, you get this nonsense. There are increasing warnings that Australia could be plunged into a nightmare scenario if Donald Trump becomes president and a battle emerges with China. What they go on to say, I read the article there yesterday, is China's going to stop buying all our coal. And we'll get back to the Bitcoin thing in a moment. But if China stops buying our coal, like, what's the issue? Australia's going green, like Bitcoin is at the moment. It's about to break $66,000 live, ladies and gentlemen. But in Australia, we've got wind and solar, and they're pushing it out hardcore because they reckon it's clean, it's green, it's cheaper, it's more expensive energy generation device. And the coal, we want to stop burning coal. Yet we ship all our coal over to China. So they got cheap, abundant energy from Australia, and then we're impoverished for it, and it's Donald Trump's fault. It's propaganda at its finest here. If you want to read that article in full, there's a whole lot more nonsense going on. And in regards to that, the Australian peso, the Pacific peso, it's crashing. It's absolutely worthless. And yes, like we measure everything against the US dollar. The US dollar's losing an extraordinary amount of value, which means this is even worse than what is represented. And Bitcoin is going to continue to go up forever for this reason. I don't care much about the currency as far as my own investing goes, but the recent precipitous fall is notable for traders, importers, and exporters, and for what it says about the view on the Aussie dollar. It's toast, ladies and gentlemen. If you are in Australia and you haven't started studying Bitcoin, please do it. But matter of fact, anywhere around the world, this is happening to every single currency worldwide. And Bitcoin is just going to keep on working. We are at block height 853,919, 65,845 there. We have 65,914 in the back. One of them is going to break 66,000, I think, while we are live. Sats per US dollar. It's yesterday was 15.15. Today we have 1,519. The market cap has gone from 1.29 back up to 1.3 trillion. Maybe we see 1.31, 1.32 over the weekend. Would be pretty interesting. The nodes are still online. 19,600. Please run a node. Somebody yesterday in the comment section asked me how hard it is. You buy a node, whether it's something that's already preloaded and plug and play, you connect it to your wallet and you're good to go. Simply, or you buy all the components, you put it together, you download the Bitcoin blockchain, and that can take anywhere from here. It took like 3 or 4 weeks because Australian internet is absolutely garbage. After that happened, and then you connect it to your wallet and you're good to go. Allows you to be sovereign, but it also protects the network. I believe there used to be like 40,000 public reachable nodes, and now we're down to under 20,000. It's like the simple thing that you can do for yourself, but also for the Bitcoin network. We're going to get into the debt clock. We brought it up yesterday, but the Federal Reserve hits 1 trillion in losses amid BRICS de-dollarization efforts. There are over 100 billion in actual losses, potentially impacting the dollar's stability. So Australia's currency is crashing. Obviously, $1 is $1, but it's not looking so good. This comes as the nation struggles with mounting national debt and forecasts of potential debt crisis by 2030. It's always 2030. It always comes back to the 2030 agenda where you'll own nothing and be happy. We do see the EU trying to put in a ledger where they can control, they can track all your assets. If this is happening in the States, it's happening here, it's happening in the EU. Maybe they want to confiscate everything and become more socialist. Maybe, maybe not. But Bitcoin is outside the system. You can hold it, you can protect it, and you're not subject to any situation that plays out. But the situation here, it raised concerns for the dollar status as the dominant reserve currency, especially amid ongoing interest challenges and BRICS de-dollarization. Source, what's your guru there with it? This is why every country around the world is going to have to add Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset, whether they do it this presidential election or next, or it takes them, 15, 20 years. Sooner or later, they have to, if they don't want to send their country from a first world to a third world. I think it's inevitable now, and it's the best solution. Peter Schiff's not happy about it, but we'll get back to that. We went through that one. Now, more gaslighting here, and we've got a couple of things from Janet Yellen, but just in regard, no, I'll read Janet Yellen first before we show the debt clock. Driven by the US states' remarkable economic performance, the global economy remains strong today. This morning's GDP report and the broader strength we've seen in the US economy in recent years didn't happen by accident. It reflects the Biden-Harris administrator's economic plan. A little bit of a suck up there, Janet Yellen. 15.7 million jobs have been created since POTUS took office. Aren't they all government jobs, is my belief there? And the unemployment rate remains historically low. Inflation is down from its peak, and we're on a path of steady growth and declining inflation. Biden-Harris administration absolutely loves Team Biden-Harris, recognizes that prices are still too high for many Americans. We're pushing forward an agenda to focus on addressing long-standing cost pressures for families related to housing, healthcare, and energy. To me, that sounds like money printing. Truly, I think that's what they're leading to. What would be your opinion on that? Under POTUS leadership, the US is also working with our global partners to make progress on shared goals. I'd like to know what those shared goals are, like bolstering resilient supply chains and responding to geopolitical challenges. What are those geopolitical challenges, Janet Yellen? What is Korean behind the scenes? As part of a strong global coalition, the US has taken unprecedented actions against Russia's brutal and unjust war on Ukraine. US Treasury remains committed to using, this is scary, remains committed to using all the tools at our disposal to support Ukraine and degrade Russia's ability to sustain this war. That means they want to continue arming them for the war to go on indefinitely. Why can't people just go there and be like, this is absolutely insane. People are dying. We need to stop it. It's not good for the world. Because there's profits. What it always comes down to. I wonder if these leaders all of them around the world get together and we're like, all right, this year, us two are fighting. Next year, you two can fight and we'll go on as long as we can keep firing the money printer. I know that's not quite true, but it's the way I think about it. The US has also taken action in response to the conflict in the Middle East. We're working to counter the Iran regime financing the terrorist actors, taking joint actions against them with our G7 partners, helping to ensure humanitarian aid can get to Palestine and Gaza. The Biden-Harris administration is demonstrating our commitment to strengthening ties with our long-standing allies and with partners around the world. We'll continue to build on our success to drive further progress. Further progress, almost at $35 trillion in national debt. It hasn't been too good under Biden. Lately, with Janet Yellen, Jerome Powell in charge, hopefully Trump does come and adds Bitcoin to the balance sheet and everything gets better pretty quickly for everyone. We saw it in El Salvador. It's not an outcry. Someone is laughing in regards to the Australian internet. Downloading the Bitcoin blockchain is absolutely insane. How long it took. BlackRock chimed in to it. And the game was over before it even started, as soon as BlackRock entered the space. Whatever we think of BlackRock, I don't think they're the greatest institution in the world. I think they've done a lot of harm in the world. BlackRock endorsing Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin, being the best performing asset of human history, but just them coming into the space made it legitimate in the financial sphere. And unless BlackRock did this, there's no way that Trump would be pushing this out. Maybe RFK still would. He's a pretty free thinker in those regards. But with BlackRock coming out, doing it, I think they've opened the way for it to happen over here in the West. And Bitcoin is trying to be global money alternative as a potential global payment system. ETH really isn't trying to be that. It's nice how they distinguish the two in this video. I thought you'd get a couple of kicks out of this one this morning.
We don't view...
We're just seeing there, Frank, 4 years is saying 66 cars, still got 65,955, but we're moments away, absolute moments away. It's happening, and that's the thing about Bitcoin. We get these moves, the green looks good, but I feel sad because it means we're going to get less, but it is validating, and the green number brings more people in. Like, it's the biggest billboard for Bitcoin. It's incredible. So we need to send it to 74K this weekend. So be it. That'll bring more people in. It'll start the conversation going. Hopefully they just take action, and then say it rips $10,000 over the weekend. For example, I'm not saying it will. Say that happens, and then it'll probably wick back down $5,000. Those new people, some of them are going to get shaken out and then be done with it. And then we tear to 100K. So hopefully we can get that education out and people start to read the books and understand you just buy, stack, and chill up, down, or sideways. It really doesn't matter. But BlackRock, let's get into it.
We don't view Bitcoin and ETH really as competitors. Like what Bitcoin is trying to be as a global monetary alternative, as a potential global payment system, ETH isn't really trying to be that, right? The whole store of value use case within crypto, I think, is pretty definitively territory that Bitcoin owns. ETH is trying to do a bunch of different applications that, for the most part, Bitcoin is not trying to do.
Yeah, Bitcoin's just superior money. Ethereum, everything else, they can change the rules. A lot of them are very centralized. Ethereum's changed the rules about 30 odd times. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, $66,043, only a matter of time. Going to see more of this. Do we go red again today? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't really matter. Just have a plan. Stick with it forever. Saving Bitcoin forever. Australian dollar, we see that's going down. US dollar's going down. Every currency at the moment is pretty much inflating away. Australia, we have a 2% target inflation rate. There are conversations about moving that to 4%. That means I think you lose about 36% of your purchasing power over 10 years. That's insane. They're advertising they want to steal that from you. You can't do that with Bitcoin. That's why it's going up forever. It's absolutely insane, but $66,000, welcome back. It's good to be here. And this is just interesting. They're getting prepared for something. Yesterday we talked about the banks in Australia stopping access to buying Bitcoin. HSBC's totally banned it. You're not allowed to buy it at all. Commonwealth Bank of Australia, they limit you to $10,000 a month. NAB can be a little bit finicky, so can the other ones. ING is meant to be pretty good. It feels like they're closing the exit ramps slowly and then suddenly getting ready for some event. And we keep seeing all this programming around the bird flu or pandemics, cyber attacks. We're seeing more and more. And then Secretary Janet Yellen today announced the US is pledging up to $667 million to support the pandemic fund through to 2026. What's going to happen in the next 2 years? They're telling you something, a pandemic over the next 2 years. That's the way that I read that. Maybe that's a little bit conspiracy tinfoil hat. They've been pretty good just watching what they say and reading between the lines. They've been warning us the whole time. They warned us about C-19. They warned us about cyber attacks. All of those things have happened. Been warned about the assassination attempt. Happened. They just didn't succeed. The investment will help the world prevent and respond to the next pandemic, protecting Americans and other globally. Prevent what? Something that they're starting themselves? Pretty interesting one on that one. And then Peter Schiff, of course, chiming in. First, Saylor tried to convince CEOs to add Bitcoin to their company's balance sheet. Since that failed, he's now trying to get Trump to add Bitcoin to the national balance sheet. A president gambling taxpayer money on Bitcoin is even worse than a CEO gambling shareholder money. It's really sad. It's very dishonest of Peter, but Bitcoin's winning $66,090. You can't stop this trend. Whatever happens over the weekend, it's going to be wild. I really do expect a lot of volatility, both to the up and to the downside. I think there's a lot of options expiring on Friday. It's Friday here in Australia, Friday in the US. We'll see what happens. I think just whatever happens, just don't get shaken out. If you're worried about Bitcoin, that it's not going to go to the moon forever, read the books. Feels like it's inevitable. Now, it's either $0 or $1 million. The probability that I give Bitcoin going to $0 is, I don't know, it's so infinitesimally small because there's so many psychopaths that are just going to buy it. So it needs to go the other way. Over what time? If the US, if Trump announces Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset, actually does it, it won't take long. It will not take long at all in the scheme of things. Couple of years, maybe 4, 5, 10, maybe not even that. Maybe it takes a little bit longer. It's just a matter of time. It depends how much money they print. And then how that game theory begins. It starts off. We're going to dive into a little bit of a banter this morning. If you haven't already and we vibe, hit the subscribe button. Next week, I will be away and getting some R&R, hitting the slope, so it should be a little bit of fun. It should be very cold. We are ready for it. But I've got podcasts lined up every single day. If there's breaking news, I will go live from the mountain or where we're staying. So those videos, you should really enjoy it. The Joseph Obel, the Tony one, Julian Farrar, we've got Seb Bunny, and there is one more, but that's a treat, I guess, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. I've been crazy busy editing, and shout out to the thumbnail and the editor for helping me get those out. They are available for channel members right now. They will be available for everyone next week. Never asked anyone ever to subscribe to be a channel member. They've done it off their own volition, so it's an easy way to be able to get those videos before everyone else. But shout out to everyone watching. We have Daddy-O from down in South Carolina. Good morning to Johnny Midas. Green Candle in the house. Mr. Android in the house. Think Android. Scott, appreciate you, mate. Bitcoin Beacon, good to see you this morning. Leroy, to modernize Bitcoin, many have discovered placing Bitcoin on-chain fusion for legit currency with DeFi and interoperability. Sounds like someone's shilling nonsense there in the chat. Not too sure on that. On-chain fusion for legit currency with DeFi and interoperability. Not interested really in using Bitcoin for any gambling. I'm here for hard money, for a superior store of value that can't be confiscated, that can't be taken away, that cannot be debased, that where the rules, we don't even need to trust them. We can verify that they do not change. The environmental retro beaver, the environmental maniacs truly believe we can power the modern world with rainbow dust and unicorn farts. They truly do. Over here, it's a pretty bad joke. And as well as that, just taking over pristine farmland, natural beauty, banning people from going to those places, putting big fence. It just seems like a big land grab, and somebody's being incentivized to be able to do it. They can't just give it to the free market, let the free market decide. Are the dominoes falling yet? No, back to sleep. Sweet dreams, Boomba. Think Orange, Australia Internet Truth. Frank 44, 66K, we are still holding above it. It is good to see. Orange Pill Dispenser in the chat. Crypto Z, what's up, buddy? Are you in Australia? Greetings from Raleigh NC, yes, mate, I sure am here on the coast. Daddy-O, hey Z. Carolina boys in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's an exciting time. You're here, everyone here. Well, you're already in the 1%. Yeah, if you understand Bitcoin, you've been stacking Bitcoin. By definition, you're in the top 1% of the global population, holding the world's hardest, scarcest asset. Well done. History is being made right now. You're living through it. Well done for getting past the FUD, the fear, taking action, reading the books. So you don't need to end up eating the bugs in 2030 with their sick agenda. Bitcoin's winning. It's going to continue to win. Politicians aside, it doesn't really matter what they do. They will accelerate a little bit more. It could get really interesting with maybe they do need to pass Bitcoin self-custody into law and your right to run a node. That needs to happen. Dennis Porter's been working very hard to make that a possibility for everyone over in the States. The more people that do it, then hopefully the more people allow it to become that. And then hopefully we get a trickle-down effect here in Australia. It's legal at the moment, which is absolutely great to see. But it doesn't matter what the politicians do. Bitcoin adoption, it got here without them. I think they'll just move it a little bit quicker. Instead of it taking 10 years, maybe it takes 2 to 4. Either way, I don't think you can stop this train. So it's been a pleasure. Do something nice for yourself. There's somebody else out there. Maybe send them the signal. Give them a Bitcoin book and get them to study it because Bitcoin's time is now. Peace.